Are you aware of the spiritual entanglements that form when you engage in premarital sex, not only with that person, but every person they've been intimate with? Today, we're going to be jumping into a biblical view and some of the consequences that happen when you have premarital sex. Well, let's jump into it. My name is Keanon Slade, and I have successfully achieved FIRE. That is, I am financially independent and have retired early. And not only that, I am here in lovely Costa Rica. If you're on this journey and you're trying to make the transition and you're looking for a life coach, guess what? You're in luck. I am a person that helps good guys have a great life outside of the US. This topic is something that I really wanted to talk to because as you're meeting different people, different generations, and people from different mindsets, you find that the principles that you may have had, at least when I had growing up, aren't quite the same. And it seems to be okay to, have premarital sex. Now, this is not one of those Bible bashing, you're going to hell conversations. This is a loving father in the Bible who wants the best for his children. When you engage in premarital sex, there are consequences, and it's not just what you think. The first thing that I didn't get until later in life was there's a reason that you don't want to have premarital sex. And part of that is entanglement. When I was growing up, the only things that you heard is don't have sex before you get married and don't get divorced. But there was no clarity why, there was no looking into character, and a lot of that stuff was missed out, and I didn't get it until later because no one was willing to talk about it. So now I'm here talking about it with you, and I wanted to let you guys know every time that you engage in sex, you're engaging in an entanglement with that particular person. And it's not just them, and it's not just at that point. Once you had sex, then if you decide to leave that person and they've only had sex with one person, and later on 10 more people come down the line, you're still connected into that cycle. That can actually mess you up spiritually if the person is sleeping around with somebody a little crazy or fearful or a whole bunch of other things that's going on spiritually. Then you get involved and trapped into that circle. You're wondering why, your life is feeling wrecked. You tried everything, you're in a different country, and months later, things are just, you don't quite feel right. These are the things that can actually deteriorate your life, whether you leave the country or not. It can actually deteriorate your life because your spiritual life is not doing too well. All the things that I'm going to go through all connect. I want you guys to not miss a thing and stay tuned to the very end. The next thing, I want to give you guys a biblical view on sexual morality. The Bible speaks clearly against it, not just bad person. There's a reason, and the reason why is found in 1 Corinthians 6:18 in the New English Version. It says, flee from sexual immorality. All other sins a person commits are outside the body, but whoever sins sexually sins against their own body. This particular sin, the reason why it's important, all sin is sin, and we have Jesus to give us grace. When you have sex and you're outside of the marriage, then you're sinning against your own body. Sex is meant to connect a husband and wife. Every time you have sex is essentially saying, I'm married. And then you're ripping apart, and then you connect with someone else, you're ripping apart, and you connect to someone else. This actually is not good because if you think of a sticker, if you will, and you got two things sticking together like it's supposed to be, you take the sticker apart, it's not so sticky anymore. This can lead to a lot of different problems in life, especially when it comes to men, where it's, oh, now I'm on to the next person because physically that wasn't so great. That's something that you've actually developed. It could train your body to be insensitive to what that's supposed to feel like. Not supposed to just be physical when you have sex. There's supposed to be intimacy. There's supposed to be love. There's supposed to be a connection that you would have with your wife, not just something that you would do for a one-night stand. You begin to do, bad things against yourself. If you're on a journey to move to a different country, whether it's Costa Rica or another place, then I want you guys to click on the link below because I have material that can help you on your journey. The next point is consequences. There's consequences for both. I want to be real because I don't want to fluff through and say that there's not going to be consequences and everything's covered by the grace of God, and it is, but there are still consequences. You can sin, and there's consequences that sin. You can be forgiven by Jesus, of course. You'll be forgiven by Jesus, but you're going to still have the earthly consequences of sin. And one of those consequences outside of sexually transmitted disease, people act like they don't exist anymore. I don't know why. A marketing team retire when I got older. I don't know. But it doesn't seem like it's announced as much. The other consequences is pregnancy. When you're having sex outside of marriage, and then you're in a place such as Costa Rica, their laws can be different of other country in the world. So you're going to have to, hopefully you'll listen to what I'm saying. You won't actually need it. If you do research your laws and information, there are going to be restrictions of leaving and coming and going out of the country. There's going to be fees and things, especially if the woman goes to court. Since you never know who you're like really with, especially if you're just in it for the sex, then how that person will act if they feel hurt, harmed, or felt abandoned. You don't know how that person's going to act, especially because you haven't spent that much time with them. You don't want to actually end up in a situation where now you're forced to either pay a lot of money to leave and you're required to follow the rules, and leaving and exiting is going to make things complicated. This is one of those things that you actually definitely have to work abroad. You just can't assume that everything's the same way it is in the United States. And even if there are some of those things in the United States, you probably never thought about them because you never planned about leaving the States for that long. It was just going to be something that you did for vacation. But when you're living outside of the country, yeah, that is something to definitely consider. Here's the question for you. Have you ever thought about waiting until marriage to have sex, to have a good, strong foundation with the person? Because if you're waiting for sex for marriage, then now your relationship is bent on emotional intimacy, communication, intellectual, learning the love language, and all the good stuff that it actually takes to have a long-standing relationship. Or do you think it's just nowadays is not important, you shouldn't wait, it doesn't matter? So put your comments below and we'll jump into the next thing. When you are waiting to have sex before marriage, that means that your relationship has to be built on a good, strong foundation. Waiting before you have sex is something that doesn't get you clouded, doesn't mess up your emotions. Sex is for that intimacy, and when you're intimate, you notice everything bad about the person disappears until it comes back. The things that you should have caught before, and I'm speaking to men and women, you will find yourself caught up with that person, smitten, if you will. It may not happen with every person that you're with, but eventually you will find the person that it will happen. The people that you're with that you don't get smitten with are still causing you problems, like I was said in the beginning, because you're tied with them. If they're emotionally, I need someone, then you may not be that person, and maybe the next person in line, where now, since you're spiritual tied, now you want somebody, and you end up in the wrong relationship, and you end up not looking over the qualities and the things that are really important in a relationship, and not just the sex. Without that, you don't actually build a good, long-standing foundation. Your foundation is based on only physical, which is a very small part, especially when everything else is out of whack, and you have to be careful of that. That brings us to this point. It's just best to honor God. Now, I am speaking to my Christian people. If I probably should have made that clear in the beginning. If you're not a Christian, then this doesn't quite, technically it all goes to you, but it doesn't quite apply to you. The message will be a little bit different. Yeah, you're entangled, and I don't recommend it. But if your heart is not after honoring what God wants, because you're not a Christian, then this message is, you'll get something from it, I pray. I wouldn't speak the same thing to you. I would say Christ first, Christ loves you, and move you towards that direction versus saying, this is what you should do. So this is actually for my Christians. So as a Christian, God designed sex between a man and a woman for God's plan for intimacy, and it was built to be in that vessel. And that vessel is supposed to be just that, a vessel. So that's when the act of sex can take place. Things are not falling apart. Things are not spilling to the side, destroying other things. And lastly, if you're under God, the thing that's going to do is be able to honor yourself and your partner. You're going to actually have the way that God designed it, and God's plans are honestly better than ours. That means that you're doing according to what God says. That's really important. Then we move into this point. It's how do you get through this and things like that. Now, Holy Spirit, of course, prayer, of course, worship and things like that. But here's something that kind of helped me, especially in my youth. And I struggled with it before I got married. And it was think past the sex, think past the moment. A lot of times we'll fantasize by a person like, oh, it'll be great to get in bed with that particular person. That'll be great. But really think past it. What happened? It was like, okay, if I'm in with the person and we don't like each other, I haven't taken time to meet the family, or they're attractive, but I can see a lot of things that I don't like about them already. Red signs and red signals, even after the first conversation. You start thinking past, how am I feel after the moment of pleasure? Am I going to be happy that I've done it or no? And honestly, I can say no. Having sex before marriage finding out that, okay, even if it was a good relationship, I messed it up or we messed it up. Yeah, we probably should have started on the friendship. Because if we started on friendship, we could have seen this and came at this angle and that angle. But here, we're so focused on intimacy that it becomes our default. When we get in problems, instead of being able to talk to a friend, there's the sexual part that comes into play. This actually is something that kind of messes you up. And this can definitely mess you up when you're overseas. And I'm saying this because as I'm meeting more people, it's like, man, people don't know this. People don't see this. People that haven't learned from the consequences. And I realize sometimes I'm talking and dealing with younger people, younger generations, or generations before me, where it's like, we're friends with benefits. I'm like, no, you're friends with entanglements. A lot of entanglements. There's issue that I'm trying to address as I talk to people along my journey. As always, I want you guys to click on the link below if you guys are considering moving outside of the country. You're looking to move abroad. You're definitely trying to FIRE. You're trying to find a way out of the box. You're trying to do things that are not the norm. I wanted to show you some of the gotchas and some of the good things that you can experience making that leap. Click on the link below so that you have resources that prepare you, and I will see you on the other side.